One man, armed with faith and the power of God, stood against the might of an empire. This is the story of Moses and Pharaoh, a tale of courage, obedience, and a miracle that shook the foundations of Egypt. It all began in the land of Egypt, where the Israelites were enslaved under the harsh rule of Pharaoh. For generations, they cried out to God for deliverance, and God answered their prayers by calling Moses, a humble shepherd, to lead them to freedom. Moses, once a prince of Egypt, had fled into the wilderness after killing an Egyptian taskmaster. There, God appeared to him in a burning bush, commanding him to return to Egypt and demand Pharaoh to release the Israelites. Though hesitant and aware of his shortcomings, Moses obeyed, trusting in God's promise to be with him. When Moses stood before Pharaoh, the most powerful ruler of the time, he boldly declared, "The Lord, the God of Israel, says, 'Let my people go.'" But Pharaoh's heart was hardened. He scoffed, "Who is the Lord, that I should obey him and let Israel go? I do not know the Lord, and I will not let Israel go." Undeterred, Moses warned Pharaoh of God's power. What followed were 10 devastating plagues that displayed God's might and Pharaoh's stubbornness. The Nile turned to blood, frogs invaded every home, and darkness covered the land. Each time Pharaoh refused to relent, only hardening his heart further. Then came the final plague, the most dreadful of all. God declared that every firstborn in Egypt would die unless Pharaoh obeyed. Moses warned Pharaoh, but again he refused. That night, as God passed through the land, every Egyptian household mourned the loss of their firstborn, including Pharaoh's own son. The Israelites, however, were spared, as they had marked their doorposts with the blood of a lamb, as God commanded. Pharaoh, finally broken, summoned Moses and told him to take the Israelites and leave Egypt. With God leading them as a pillar of cloud by day and fire by night, Moses guided the Israelites toward freedom. But Pharaoh's pride reignited. He pursued the Israelites with his army, trapping them at the edge of the Red Sea. In that moment of desperation, Moses stretched out his staff over the waters, and God performed a miracle. The sea parted, creating a dry path for the Israelites to cross. When Pharaoh's army followed, the waters crashed down, drowning them all. God had delivered his people, and Moses stood victorious through faith and obedience. Moses' victory wasn't about his leadership or strength, but his trust in God's plan. He showed us that even the most impossible situations can turn into miracles when we follow God's call. Remember, no matter how overwhelming your challenges seem, with God, the impossible becomes possible. Like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring biblical stories and blessings.